think you may not even see the uneven learn right away. You get into highly gifted categories, and a lot of these kids can compensate. Correct. Exactly. Exactly. And the problem too is like, okay, so here's my opinion. If somebody tests low, if you test a kid younger and older and like even into college, and their scores keep getting higher and higher and higher, like, so because they'll estimate your full scale IQ at each point, because they really, it really is an adult IQ that they're aiming for, right? So the full scale IQ is for your adult performance ultimately, so they're predictive. So if that's what they're saying, you should really pay attention to if they're performing poorly relative to themselves, and as time goes on that decreases rapidly. That to me says they're compensating. They're learning how to compensate. You should look at that pattern. So first of all, I think we should have way more psychoeducationals in terms of like just standard procedure for young people. I think psychoeducationals are incredibly valuable. I think we should have more helping professionals who realize that, like, look, if you don't do it, the teachers are going to make guesses, and those guesses can be highly inappropriate, and these teachers are just simply not trained to do clinical work. Okay, so we need people moving rapidly into the helping professions that are advanced clinical degrees, working with specific populations, especially these things like giftedness and learning disabilities, right? So twice exceptional, we need that. And then you need to look at the whole trajectory, and you have to retest these kids, especially if you start to notice a trend of them jumping up entire categories, which totally does happen. So you'll have people jumping from one category to the next to the next. And I'm like, okay, you don't know what their IQ is, because that says to me when they're younger, they didn't know how to compensate. Then they started to figure it out. Then they started to figure it out more. You've got to help these kids, because once they get to adult level of functioning, what they've done to compensate with the school system is probably dysfunctional in the rest of society, because your school system does not map onto the rest of society. It does not mirror the difficulties of society. In fact, you do not teach these kids daily living skills. You don't. They just don't. And then when we get stressed out, when we're imploding, when the complexity reaches a level that a school system will never have, because the school system is particularly rigid. Even when we hated it, at least it was rigid. At least it was like, you go here and this happens at this time and you're done. And then you do that and you do that and you do it again and again and again. So the repetition is there, even if there's no freaking point to it, right? So then you throw these kids into the soup of, stress of adulthood, losing a parent, having a child, dealing with mortgages and bills. These people will implode. And that's what happens to many, 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 many of us. That's what happened to many of us. That's what's happening to many of us. And, if I advise, give the test twice. Right. If the second score is way higher on the same test, you've got a smart kid with some learning issues. Yeah, transitions are incredibly hard. And a lot of us, that they think we're flying under the radar, suddenly we are not flying under the radar at all. And that can be stigmatized in a very unhelpful ways too. Like I don't mind having the problems that I have. I just don't want people to suspect that I have problems I don't have. That doesn't help me. It just doesn't help. So now that I know that I am in this category of person, what's so strange is that my brother got flagged and I didn't, because of misogyny, period. I did not get flagged because I was a girl. That was what happened to me. And it's deeply upsetting, but it's not something that I can stop without calling attention to what happened to me. So I don't bring it up to be an asshole or to be resentful. I'm bringing it up because it can't keep happening. It cannot. So when I got to different transitions in my life, I felt horrible, because I clearly wasn't performing like other people, and I clearly never will. I'm not going to be able to perform like the average person on transitional adjustments. I can't do those. However, there are so many strategies we can use and develop. Not only are there so many strategies that currently we could try out, there are strategies that haven't been invented that we can help to invent. And I love inventing things. I love creating things. I deeply enjoy learning the nuance of a problem and looking for interesting, elegant solutions. Yeah, so I have a sense of purpose with it, but I hope I'm able to explain to those individuals that have resources, that are established in these clinical communities, that what I'm saying is being echoed by many of us, and that we're saying it because we understand it's necessary to say. Yeah, my score the second time jumped by huge amounts. Exactly. First time I took the Army recruitment test, I scored average. Second time, a year later, I scored in the top 1%. The first time I had to read the instructions. Incredible. So we're talking, that's it. That's what I'm talking. I completely agree with you, Hambliss. This is exactly. So that is such a uncharted phenomenon. We don't even know the extent to which the individuals who we're speaking of would have that experience, because they don't have the opportunity to see and compare the results from one testing event to another. That's a beautiful example. Thank you for sharing. It's like my problems plus girl, you had it rough. Yeah, it was I'm so grateful for my life because I had the luck to be born when I was born, in some ways, because there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's an expansive light, right? There's a destination for us. I believe that is a good place, a soft landing, an inspiring, exciting place to be. However, the amount of psychological pain I have processed is ridiculous, given that I don't have other forms of trauma. It's just solely coming from the neurodevelopmental conditions in my family and in myself. It's just that. And it's like insane. And I feel that I narrowly escaped some very predatory people. I did. I narrowly escaped some very predatory people. And I probably will still be running away from some predatory people because they flagged me as a good target. Because our society has misogyny as an undercurrent of how we make decisions about who goes where in the public sphere. And as long as I'm visible outside in public, I'm going to have people taking that out on me. Not a ton of people, but I will tell you the people that want to do it are very motivated. So when it comes to like trauma, I think my society is traumatic for girls, and that trauma eats away into your adulthood, even when you get a break from it to some extent. And especially seeing it happen to the next generation of girls again is traumatic. But I don't want that to happen to another generation of autistic girls the way it happened to me. At least that. I just want to be able to change that enough for them, that they do not experience what I did, that they do not have to be lucky to not be victimized, traumatized, abused. Thank you for giving me a space to articulate that. I may highlight that even, because that I think was one of the best jobs I've done trying to explain that. And it's super, super important. If I can do a decent job, if I can do it any justice to explain it, it needs to be explained. If not me, then somebody. Yes, when you make it, it feels like you have an obligation to do something about it. Absolutely. You do. I mean, and it's not, I think it's not a bad thing to take on that obligation. We just shouldn't feel that we're alone in it. That's unfair. But it makes sense and is a perfectly not only reasonable response, rational response, ethical and moral response to what we've been through. But it's not just like the right thing to do. Somebody has to. And we understand why. So like if we can like buffer up each other's, our self-worth and our energy so we can do this. It's just got to happen. Somebody needed to do that for us, and people probably tried, by the way. So we got to do it even bigger than people tried for us, so that it really makes a big difference. Because we were lovable kids, we're lovable adults, and so are the other kids out there that are going through it now.